In this video, I'm gonna be talking about why Clash Royale will never be balanced. I'm sure we've all thought before that Supercell should just buff every card that is below average and nerf every card that is above average, so that all the cards would be equally strong. In this video, I'll tell you the 3 main reasons why that will never work. The first is that all cards have different skill ceilings. For example, if we compare the Magic Archer, a very high skill card, and the Royal Recruits, a very low skill card, a pretty big problem arises. If you balance them so that they're equally good when played as good as possible, the Magic Archer would be way worse than the Royal Recruits in low to mid ladder, as players there can play the Royal Recruits basically to their full potential, but not the Magic Archer, which means that the Magic Archer would be bad in low ladder and also wouldn't reward the high skill player. However, if we balance them in a way that a mid ladder player would think that they're equal, that would mean that on top ladder, where people can properly play the Magic Archer, it would be a lot better than the Royal Recruits, meaning they would be bad on top ladder. So, as you can see, with some cards, it's actually impossible to properly balance them for every player. But the next problem is probably even more important: interactions. Take the Sap as an example. Back in 2017, it was by far the best card in Clash Royale, so therefore its damage got nerfed by 6%, which doesn't seem like much. However, it meant that it couldn't kill goblins anymore, and with how popular the Goblin Barrel was back then, that was a huge drawback. And that case actually isn't too rare. Some cards are so dependent on certain interactions that if they win them, they're too strong, and if they don't, they're useless. There are obviously other ways of balancing a card, but it does show how complex the problem is. That is also the case because of synergies between cards. Some cards are only good in combination with certain decks. Let's take the Elixir Golem as an example. The only deck it was ever really useful in are the ones with Healer, Night Witch, E-Dragon, and so on. Actually, none of these cards were that broken in 2019, however, in combination, they were pretty much unstoppable. That means that if you nerf the card so that the deck is balanced, it becomes completely useless in other decks. Also, if the game would ever be at a point where it seems like every card is balanced, over time, players would still figure out new combinations of cards that will build a new meta. Also, it's obviously already hard to find what's balanced and what's not. Whether Rocket should kill Sparky or not is not completely objective, and you can't just buff every card that has a below average use rate and nerf every card that has an above average use rate, as for example win conditions and spells tend to always have slightly higher use rates than other cards. And if a card is balanced, but very fun to use, naturally more players will use it. So let's conclude. There are a lot of factors that determine whether a card is balanced or not, and a lot of them require a more complex solution than a simple buff or nerf. And that is why Clash Royale will most certainly never be balanced. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot. Subscribe.